If you've been thinking about podcasting or wondering what the benefits are, then this episode is for you.
You're listening to the Dynamic Women podcast. Each week, you'll be inspired by our global community of women. They'll share with you tools and stories to help you be dynamic in every area of life. He's your host, award-winning coach, and the CEO and founder of Dynamic Women, Diane Rolston.
Hello, lovely dynamic women, and welcome to the Dynamic Women podcast. I am Diane Rolston, your host, and today our topic of blazing your way to more income, impact, and influence with podcasting with Michelle Abraham comes from the Trailblazer Summit. So this is a little bit of an encore presentation for you, being able to capture the information from Michelle. She is a good friend of mine and an expert in the podcasting world. Listen up. And actually, before you start listening, why don't you hit subscribe so that you can make sure that you catch not only this interview from the Trailblazer Summit, but the other interviews with the other speakers as well as future guests. We have someone that's one of my favorite people. She's one of my favorite people. We have a little power pack called the Queen's Council. We made that up, and she is a part of that. And her name is Michelle Abraham. And so I'll just share and I'll read what we're going to be talking about today. So she's going to go over how to blaze your way to more income, impact, and influence with podcasting. And I have to let you know, she helped me with my podcast. I was procrastinating on it. I wasn't doing it. She gave me that kick. She was that power pack little push that I needed to help me get it done. So a big welcome to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for having me. And so many friends I see in the chat. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Diane's got the best group of supporters, and I love seeing them all here. Some of my favorite people.
Thank you. I want to pull up your official bio rather than just saying that you're amazing. So let me go through that now. Michelle Abraham is an international speaker, podcast producer, host, and the author of the upcoming book, The Profitable Podcast. She was voted number 16 the last 2 years on the Podcast Magazine's list of the top 50 moms in podcasting. She was also awarded Entrepreneur of the Year by Business from the Heart. And Michelle is the founder of Amplifyou, described by Shark Tank alumni Kevin Harrington as North America's top podcast management company. Booyah, mic drop right there. Amplifyou specializes in done-for-you services, helping visionary entrepreneurs. Remember, we talked about Eagle Vision for Trailblazers, so she can help you with that. She helps with a powerful message to market and monetize their products while making a lasting impact. Michelle and her team have launched more than 200 podcasts, mine included, in the last 3 years and manage over 55 shows weekly. I think it's actually 60 now. And the co-founder of MyPodcastCoach, Michelle has been sharing her passion, mentoring podcasters since 2012. She was one of the trailblazers in podcasting, and she's an advocate for the freedom lifestyle. She walks her talk, living off the grid on a lake and boating her kids to the school bus, all while running her successful all online business, meaning everyone is online. I'm so proud of you and happy for you. And I've worked with you in so many different ways as your client, that I know that, yeah, you do such amazing work.
Well, and a lot of that has contributed to you as a friend, a client of yours as well. Your coaching and your support has definitely helped me get to where I am today. And I laugh when I hear the last part of it, because I'm like, to some people that sounds like, what? Why would you want to live where you do? But some people it's crazy, and for others it's an adventure and fun. So.
Well, one of our other speakers, Evie, was talking about selling her home and traveling. And I know that you did that for 6 months, was it? Or was it a year?
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, you traveled and then you moved on to a boat access only home, which is really cool, really cool. And key thing here is you retired your husband from a stressful job, which I know a lot of my clients, a lot of my network, that's something that they want to do is help their husband to have an early retirement. So, but we're here to talk about podcasting. So let's dive in.
All right, let's do it.
What got you into podcasting?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. I look back at it today and I actually think it saved me from postpartum depression. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I had a fitness studio with 6 boot camp locations across the province and a huge business before. And I had a baby. And then when I became a new mom, of course, I loved having a baby and being a new mom, but I was so used to this like business brain that my brain went to mush. And I remember sitting on the floor playing Goo Goo Gaga with him all day and going, oh my gosh, I need something to motivate and inspire me. And so I turned on the Apple TV and sure enough, there was that purple podcast app. And then soon enough, it turned into putting my earbuds in every Monday morning when a new episode came out and off we went for a walk. And it really saved me, I think.
Yeah. And I can totally relate because I had postpartum depression after both kids, but because I think I was just like highly functioning. And I'm sure you were too running your businesses, that it's like, as trailblazers, as leaders, we still can kind of keep it together and still go and forge ahead, but to what detriment? So I'm glad that you are sharing that story of yourself, because I think it's important that people see that there's not perfection in trailblazers and leaders, that we do suffer and we do have challenges, and it kind of makes it a little bit more normal.
Absolutely. And what you and Kat were just saying about how, like, you know, we maybe don't share in the moment when it's happening, but afterwards it's such a learning experience. And I really actually didn't recognize in the moment that that's what was happening. Was I just felt in a rut and not in a funk. And I didn't really get that until I got on the other side of it and looked back and I was like, ooh, I think that's what postpartum depression was, right? I mean, I was so excited to be a new mom. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved my baby, but like, holy, like those are long days sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's important for those who don't have a podcast to know this, but also people who have a podcast to be reminded of these things. What are the 4 things that podcasting can do for us?
Yeah, you know, it's a great thing. And I think if we just pull it back for a second, if you're here today and you have a podcast, think of it as having your own podcast and what kind of benefits you get from podcasting. If you're here and you don't have a podcast, think about going on to a show as a guest and what benefits can have, because the 4 benefits are actually could work either way, whether you want to be a guest. And now what if you're saying here, but I don't know anything about podcasting, why would I be a guest? Well, you have a story, you've overcome something, you've achieved something that others are wanting to achieve. And so you're going to make a perfect guest because you're a leader and you have something to share and you have a message. So the 4 things that I think really set people apart when they become podcasters or go on podcasts, I think is that when you go on something, you're elevated as the expert. So we're going to talk from the guest perspective. So you're at positioning. So it's positioning yourself, whether you host something or you go on as an expert as the guest, right? So that's really good exposure for you. It's really good credibility. It's really helping you move forward. So expert positioning is the first one. Number 2 is my favorite one, and that is building strategic partnerships. So, you know, no matter if you go on a show as a guest or you have people on your show as a guest, your podcast is an opportunity to have the conversation before and after the recording. And honestly, that's really where my business has moved a lot. And a lot of my clients too, is like, you know, and I know you too, Diane, like when you get on a call with someone, they've heard you speak or you've interviewed them, you've gotten to know them. There's like, oh, wait, I know someone that you would be great for, or I know another podcast you can go on, or, oh, I know someone you should connect with, or I want to hire you. That was amazing, right? So there's a lot of this going on. So strategic partnerships is number 2. Number 3 is it gives you a ticket, I call it a ticket, to open doors. So opening doors, meaning like, so if there's someone that I want to get to know better, and actually this is a great example of this, Diane. I wanted to get to know Diane better. I saw her speak somewhere. And so I invited her to a conference with me. We didn't know each other very good. We traveled all over the place. A lot of you have heard this story in this room, but it was kind of a bold move like that. But now I have a podcast, and that's what I like. So I had these tickets for this event, which is why I invited Diane. But And now if I have a podcast, so I have something that would be really great for someone else to come on, get exposure. I get to lead with service. I get to, really elevate them and introduce them to my audience. They get to come and give value to my audience. And so now it opens doors. So I can reach out to people that maybe I wouldn't have any other opportunity to get to know. You never know where those relationships are going to go. So number 3 was give you a ticket to open doors.
Nice.
And number 4 was lead with service, which I just said. So having a podcast, or you get to, or even having a message if you're a guest. So you get to lead by an invitation to invite someone in, share them with your audience, really elevate them, really showcase them, promote them on social media, that kind of thing. So leading with service. And that means you doing something really kind for someone else first. And that's a big part of how we run our business, is that we love leading with service. And I think there's a big heart-centered movement in consciousness and in leadership right now that is much needed. So it's we have a mutual friend that says, you don't show up. You show up with like a white napkin over your shoulder with service, right? Instead of like
serve rather than a bib.
It's all about me, right?
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier, and our friendship developed because you had that courage to reach out to me after I delivered a workshop that you were in. You were like, hey, do you want to come to this event? And I was like, this is California, flying to California together to go to this. It was Brendan Burchard, but I get this email, and I was new. That was my very first workshop for a networking group. I was brand new to it. And she sends me this thing and she's like, do you want to go with me? I'm like, who are you? Why are you asking me? Who's Brendan Burchard? Like, I had no idea anything. And what I found out later was actually Michelle is also a trailblazer in the way of, she knows the online space, and she's been for many years studying from different people. And when she was mentioning that coach, that was like, lead with service, not with your bib. That's a coach that we both are learning from, and that we invest in to be able to build our speaker businesses. And so it's been cool being in the friend zone, but also in that, like, the business support place. So that's why I was like, no, you're at like 60 shows now, right? Like, I applaud you. So let's go to the 4 things that hold even successful entrepreneurs back from launching their podcast, because I was one of them.
And I discovered these because this is what took me so long to launch my podcast. I loved podcasts so much. So taking you back to when I became that new mom, I got addicted to being a listener. And I knew, like, I could see in my car, there was the button, this purple app in my car, in my everywhere. It was like everywhere I went. So I could take podcasts everywhere. I was like, this is not going anywhere. So I procrastinated on having a podcast because I had a whole bunch of things going on. One, didn't know what I wanted to talk about. 2, was totally scared of really putting my voice out there. 3, I didn't really know what my story was to put out there. And so I just kept thinking about it. Meanwhile, I knew this thing was there and like so exciting. So I started helping other people with their podcasts. So now I see when people come and work with us, there's a couple of things that we got to go over before we can launch successfully a podcast. And the number one thing is that I think you need to have a proven program or service in your business. And this might be a little bit unconventional of what you hear advice other places, but because of the space that we work in for podcasting, we're not out there looking for sponsorships or ads or having, millions of downloads. We're actually trying to use our podcast as a relationship builder, bringing new clients into our business, growing our business as an entrepreneur. So having a proven program and service is really, really, really good. And it's going to be a much more valuable experience and more profitable experience if you have one. The second one is make sure it's a topic you love. So like I said before, I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. Really, if you can write down 100 things about this topic, you're at the right spot. If you only write down 20, you need to peel back the onion a little bit bigger, a little bit more, get down to really what it is you want to talk about. And a broader topic is okay. You don't have to be super specific. That's what your program and services are for. So think of the podcast as the top of a funnel where it's a bit broader net you're casting.
Yes.
Number 3 is technology. And this is probably the number one. Other than your voice, this is the number one. think that, I usually have this picture that I show that has like tons of microphones and amplifiers and all these crazy things that you need. Really, you need a headset and you need a microphone, and that is it.
Yeah.
Nothing. So, and a Zoom, and a Zoom account is really helpful. So make it really easy. So easy on yourself. So the technology I see holds people back because they've built up in their head that it's so crazy. It's not. And number 4 is the time. So time is something. So we got fear, tech, time, and perfectionism. So tech is the equipment. Fear is the fear of your voice, fear of failure, fear of all the feels. And the perfectionism is the not putting action into that fear to move forward out of that. It's thinking it has to be perfect. And we have a joke that if you're not embarrassed by your first few episodes, like 20 episodes in, you waited too long to do it. Everyone's first few episodes sucks. So don't worry about it. Just get going and get into action, and you'll get over the perfectionism. You don't have to wait for it to be perfect.
Yeah. Done beats perfect. And I think of all the people who I could have reached in those whatever year or 2 years that I didn't have a podcast, that I missed out on because I just didn't give it a try. Right. I didn't make it a priority. That was the key thing. And what I love, and I think that I know, but I think everyone else needs to know that you are a jack of all trades when it comes to tech and business and strategies, because you studied from so many people. And that's where you and I would like riff off each other and talk about this and talk about that. And then you were able to help with many things. That's why I said she helped me with my book, but that's also because we had that relationship. But then one day you decided, I'm going to pick one, and the podcasting is the one. And I think this is key to being a trailblazer, is that you have to pick your route that you're going to blaze a trail in. And so I've seen you go so much further faster because you picked your thing, your one thing that you are extremely good at. So that's how you've been able to have more shows, to build the network, and to start being the one that, like, I keep, like yesterday when we were in that VIP day together, I was hearing all of the name dropping of all these people that now you're doing their show or you've interviewed them. Like, it's absolutely amazing, but only happened because you picked your lane.
Yeah. And if I can just put some numbers around that, before I was doing book publishing, online marketing stuff, funnels, courses, and podcasting, I couldn't break the 6-figure mark. I was stuck around like 75K for so many years. This year, we're well over $500,000 this year. So we're almost there. And that was just a matter of dropping everything else, picking one thing, and being an expert in that one thing. So there's lots of experts that do a lot of things, but you got to be known for that one thing. You got to be the dynamic woman in your craft.
In your lane. Pick a lane. So let's go to the question officially now. What are the 4 things we need to have a successful podcast? Because we don't want to just have a podcast. We want it to be successful.
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing successful is that you have a business already. So you're a leader, you're a business person, you're an entrepreneur. So consider yourself an entrepreneur. You got a program, even if it's in the works, you got something going on, right? Number 2 is a topic you love. Number 3 and 4 are support. Okay, so support is really important. So leaders, I didn't get here by myself. I had so many coaches along the way, including Diane. So, these are things that you need to really think about. You need support. You can't do it's not an I game. There's no I in team. It's a teamwork with you and a coach, you and someone else, you and your team getting there. Okay, so support is super, super important. You can't do it alone. And strategy. So a lot of people just throw out podcasts, and now what we're seeing is a ton of our business is coming from people that including a huge name that we work with. She was in the movie The Secret. She came to us and said, our podcast is like the neglected little brother. They just did it because they thought they needed it, but now they actually need to put some attention on it. So it's called that we're doing relaunches. Okay, so this is, you didn't have the strategy to start with. You didn't know your business is here, your podcast is here, and they don't connect anymore. Or maybe you've evolved so much in business, but your podcast hasn't. So you got to connect them back together. So that strategy is the 4th one. That's really huge.
Awesome. I love it. So good. Any questions from our audience here? And as you're thinking of your questions, Michelle, you have a gift for our audience.
I
Can
do.
you share what it
Yes.
is, and we'll pop it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether you have a podcast or not, we're running a program called, it's a 4-hour class that we're going to do. And it's an event in October 24th.
Yeah.
It's called Podcast Sales Machine Live. So we're going to teach you how, what I just said, that gap between your podcast or your idea of your podcast and your business, we're going to connect them together. So we're going to walk you through the steps on doing that.
Awesome.
Make sure you put the code IMPACT in so that you get the VIP upgrade. VIP upgrade is all sorts of extra training and support around podcasting.
Okay. And that's free tickets?
Free tickets?
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Question here from Kathy Fester what is the ideal length of a podcast? We were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah. My weird answer on it is however concisely you can ideally say one message. So one concise message per show. Now, on average, the average person is listening for about 20 minutes of time. So what we're finding is that we can see now in the back of Apple iTunes how long people are listening for. So we can see now on average people, drop off usually after 20 minutes. Doesn't mean you can't do an hour show, but just think about it, maybe 15 to 20 minutes of time. And I know the shorter, more brief, but to the point with more packed or better.
Yeah, so you can do a 6-minute one. And the beauty of that is that it makes it easier for us to have a podcast.
That's right.
So that's really good. And so Jackie's asking what the link is for. The link is for an event where you can come on and learn about having a podcast, and maybe explain it one more time, Michelle.
Yep. So it's a Podcast Sales Machine Live. It's a 4-hour event where we're going to talk about all the things that I talked about today, like having partnerships and reciprocity and all those great things in having a podcast and a business that connect together. So this is fine if you don't have a podcast and you're interested in podcasting. We're going to talk about that too. And if you have a podcast already as well, this is a great event. So it's podcastsalesmachinelive.com, and you can put the code IMPACT in there. Be upgraded for free to the VIP area.
Okay, so I just put the code in there. Make sure you use that. I've been a client of Michelle's services. She knows her stuff. And so I encourage you to just at least show up at that event, right? Just to learn as much as you can, and then to see where things go from there. Yeah, podcasting has been really cool. And one person in the survey, I don't know if they're here still, maybe. And if it was you, please say me. But someone said, I've been listening to all of your podcasts, and, and to hear someone say, I've been listening to your podcasts, that was really exciting. That made my day. And to have feedback and comments on it is amazing. So that's why I also did the podcast review contest, because we want people to not just listen, but engage, like Evie was saying. So, Michelle, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for not only coming here to share about podcasting, but for launching my podcast and for managing my podcast. I have your team manage my podcast. When you did, it just made it easier, so much easier for me. And if our audience is looking for a way to be able to move their business forward in a way that gets your message out there, podcasting is a really good place. Oh, Kathy's now coming in last second with a question. Okay, fine. How much increase in business boost does the podcast give? Is it advisable to have a podcast to help with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the podcast, what I would do first is start by going and being a guest on other shows and seeing if you like it, right? A lot of my clients have really fallen in love with podcasting. It's their favorite thing they do. And yeah, it's really great. Sometimes, as Diane said, it could feel like you're talking to yourself. So you don't know, but you go and look at numbers. Well, 500 people listen to this episode, but I don't know who they're so it's nice to hear that feedback, right?
Yeah.
But like I said before, Kathy, it's all about positioning and making yourself an expert. And then you're going to grow an audience of people that want to hear your message.
Yeah. But you need a strategy and a plan. Don't just think, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that. I'm going to build 10K followers because I want to go travel. That's a great idea. You need a strategy for all the things that our experts today have said, right? We heard that from Kat with marketing. You need to have a strategy also so you don't get stuck and stalled. And with your dressing, it's funny because Scarlett actually said you don't need a strategy in getting ready. You just go and pick something. However, it's the foundation that's already been set so you can go on kind of like automatic, which in what everything our experts have said is really true. Build that foundation, have the right steps in place so that you have a plan to move forward properly.
Well, thanks again.
Yes, and
support. Cheerleader with you, right?
The support for sure. Yes, exactly. Because you have a team helping you to run these 60 shows a week. You're not doing it all on your own.
Nope.
Yeah, not the lone wolf. Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much, Michelle. And I know we'll be hearing from you again for sure.
Thank you for listening to the Dynamic Women podcast. You know the drill. Hit subscribe, write a review, and share with a friend. And I'd love to hear what your biggest takeaway is from this episode. And if you have a podcast, drop the name and the link below so I can check it out. Or if you have an idea on what kind of podcast you want to do, share with us as well in the comments. And if you have any obstacles around, how do I get my podcast going? Or I don't know how to do the episodes or the technology, just put your question below and we'll help you out. All the best. Until next time, stay dynamic. Bye.
Thank you, Dynamic Women, for joining us today. Please hop on over to iTunes to subscribe and leave us a review. Who do you know who needs to hear our message? We'd love it if you'd share our channel with your friends and family. If you're ready to be more dynamic, have more balance and more success, head over to www.dynamicwomenclub.com/free gift for your Key to Success book. Stay dynamic.